very important, but when you talk about who's dominating Southern politics, it's the white working class. I mean, that's those who are dominating Southern politics and transforming American politics. Right? When you look at these, you look at this election. In my classes, people are. I mean, this campus is tailor-made for Republicans of the last 20 years, middle to upper middle class, white, suburban Baton Rouge and suburban New Orleans. I mean, you could. I used to tell my classes that SEBA is probably the most Republican place in the world. Business majors in the white suburban South. You know, I mean, that is the Republican demographic. You know, that is if you stand in front of SEBA, if you meet one Democrat, it's like, well, you've met an anomaly. You know, but that is changing. I mean, that is clearly changing, and it's because I think the disconnect between some of these social issues, the ones that stand out are abortion and gay issues, but younger, and I mean that's the big unknown in this election. I mean, if you look at CNN exit polls, the youngest age group in Alabama voted for Kerry. I mean, in Alabama. Go look, you know. And you know, my classes are becoming, instead of 10%, 30, 35% Democrats. And it's like, whoa, what is going on here? I've never met Democrats in this camp. I mean, more than 7. You know? It's like something's going on, you know. And you sort of begin to see that definition of politics is changing. I don't know where it's going. And the big unknown in this election, yes, was the Kerry-Bush election. But Kerry, emphasized Kerry because Kerry thought he was going to win because of younger people coming in. And they sort of did, but the Bush people came in bigger numbers, and it was sort of the beginning of that. And this might not, I mean, if Obama wins, it would probably be because of that. But if he doesn't win, it would probably be because that's not as strong as people think it is. You know, and he could. I mean, you know, just as an aside, any political scientist would tell you, anybody would say this is almost anybody would tell you this is totally a Democratic year, and any Democratic candidate should win by 10 points. But because Obama, probably because Obama is an African American, probably because Obama. There's this sense of Muslim or something. Logically, it would be about 5 points, but he could still lose. You know. But and I'm not talking Southern there here. I mean, Pennsylvania, Ohio, all of that. You would think, you know, and I'm not saying racism necessarily, but the other and all that stuff. And Pennsylvania is probably closer than it would be normally if the Democratic candidate weren't named Barack Hussein Obama. You know, that's the thinking. And I mean, that if I try to get my head around this election, it's like, well, all the indicators are there should be a Democratic landslide. It's like, but the Democratic nominee is named Barack Hussein Obama. You know, and that's the other. You know, and therefore Pennsylvania isn't an 8-point lead; it's a 3-point lead. You know, Ohio isn't a 7-point Democratic lead or a 5-point Democratic lead; it's even, if that. You know. So again, that's sort of the aside, but the Barack Hussein Obama effect isn't as great among younger people, and it will be interesting to see if religion pulls out in a way, you know, or if it's redefined in a way, if it's connected to issues in a different way. But I think this set of elections, Bush, Kerry, Obama, McCain, and whatever's next. If Obama wins, I think we will have seen that things have changed. If he doesn't win, we'll see the next election. Because the nominee's not likely to be named Barack Hussein Obama. And we'll see if there really isn't. If what had happened in the last 30 years really did start to sort of dissipate. Or maybe that it's just the numbers change. Maybe we still have this, because what we have now seems to me is a New Deal alignment and a cultural alignment. comparable. You see the cultural stuff stronger in highly religious places, like I wouldn't mind talking about the changes in Louisiana, but this is so much fun to talk about. I mean, you guys are such great people. Let's stop here for a little bit and talk, and then I'll talk a little about Louisiana. Yeah.
I want to hear you talk a minute about the Sarah Palin effect, because we read in the paper today that she's been prayed over that the witches won't affect her candidacy.
Right. Well,
how we were to take that.
Well, I think it's a fairly, our job is to simplify, and I can sort of simplify this Sarah Palin effect in my own mind. McCain needed some credibility in the part of the party that, I'm not saying this was a good pick, but McCain didn't have as much credibility as most Republican candidates have had among the religious right as I'm defining them in here. Palin certainly fit that bill. She and all of and the people who really define themselves as Republican working, the people in both Frank's book and and she galvanized that group of people. But the reason and it's not simplifying Sarah really, the reaction to her, if it becomes mostly negative as the witchcraft stuff and it's the sort of a little too fundamental for me stuff, not me personally, but for the average American, as that starts to crystallize, if that really does crystallize, because her negatives are going up pretty dramatically, and if Obama wins partially because of that, then this sort of transformation that I think she's great for political scientists studying that. I don't necessarily think she's a great presidential candidate. She's great for political science. She's great for studying women and all sorts of other things too. But she's great for people who analyze politics. Because I do think if she becomes more defined that way, and I think she is becoming that, more defined as sort of a perhaps too fundamentalist for the American taste candidate, religious fundamentalist for American taste candidate. And if she drives people away because of that, then that sort of dissipation, if you will, of the positive religious cultural effect, you'll see it with her. And so, I do think Palin put him back in the game, and maybe he's going to take him out of the game. And I can't help, and we're wrong all the time. I can't help but think, well, there could be a last minute thing, but the fundamentals of this election should be that Obama should win. Any Democrat should win. And so you sort of look, and should win by a lot. But that doesn't always happen. And the fact, again, you sort of pull that down because of his name and the things associated with his name. And so it gets close enough where he might not win because, maybe the Palin effect brings in fundamental people who were questioning McCain's, commitment to that. He'd always been conservative on abortion, but not the other stuff. All of a sudden, they're there for him. They're not voting. They're there for him. In fact, she's a woman we don't know this yet. That's the one that's hard to sort out. Might bring in some suburban women who aren't necessarily as